Welcome to part 2 of our virtual program, All About Owls. In part 1, you already learned all about what owls are, what kinds of owls you might find in New York City, and especially right here on Staten Island. You learned about some of the really unique adaptations of owls, and especially you learned about their really special digestive system and about something called an owl pellet. And that's what part 2 is all about. We're going to go through a demonstration to teach you how to dissect your very own owl pellet and how you can read the clues hidden inside of them to learn even more about owls. So let's go ahead.
Now, before we run through our owl pellet dissection, we're going to cover the materials you'll need at home in order to follow along with your own owl pellet dissection. First, we have a paper plate here. Any plate or bowl would suffice, and this is going to be the center for all of our owl pellet dissection. Right over here in this piece of aluminum foil is our owl pellet itself. Right here, a pair of tweezers. We have a paintbrush, a toothpick, our magnifying glass, collection containers, and our bone identification chart to help us ID all of the different bones we may or may not find within our owl pellet.
So now it's time to begin the dissection. You'll find your owl pellet wrapped in a piece of aluminum foil. Just discard the aluminum foil and take a look at what you have. Kind of an oval, organic shape. You can gather your other materials and tools together, your toothpick, your tweezers, and your toothbrush, and start to go ahead. Remember that you have probably very delicate bones and some other pieces inside that might be easy to break. So as you're going through, just be conscious of that and start to pull some sections off. And you'll be mostly pulling away the parts of fur, maybe some feathers that are padding the harder pieces inside. And as you begin to excavate, you'll start to find little bits of animal bones and harder pieces. When you find them, if they're easy to take right out, you can just use the tweezers and just set them aside. They'll still be covered in random pieces of furs and debris that you can clean off afterwards. You can decide to do that as you take a bone out and clean it off, or you can pull all the pieces out and set them aside together so that you can clean them off together. It's really all up to you.
And as Angel mentioned, being delicate and taking your time, because these owl pellets are full of some amazing treasures, everything from bones to fur to insect parts. And so I in particular love using this toothpick as a tool because it helps me to feel around inside of the pellet a little bit more so than the tweezers.
Wow, that almost looks like a beak that you pulled out. That's pretty amazing. It may be, but it may not be, and we'll see. It's still kind of hard to tell with all the darker debris around it. But there's already quite a few things. I see what may look like some teeth, but again, I'm just not sure yet. Oh, looks like you launched a piece at me and I returned it to the plate. That'll happen. You may want to put down some newspaper or something to gather up the different pieces that may launch away from your working space. You may even want to wear goggles or some sort of eye protection if you're very concerned about things like that.
You can see I used the brush there in order to get some residual fur off of that bone before using the bone identification chart.
This is a really great chart. This is the Cornell Lab of Ornithology chart. That on the back of it, it actually has a diagram of a rodent that shows you how all these different pieces fit together.
You can see I'm taking that toothpick again, just because there is a small hollow hole in that bone there. And so, because some of the bones within, just say, the scapula line, some of them will look real similar. So there's very small, minute details that'll help you to identify what part of the chart that bone belongs to. So I'm gently using a toothpick just to pull the fur out of that small little hollow.
Yeah, I love how you used all three of the different tools here on this piece because they all have different applications, from the brush helping you feel more like a really delicate sort of paleontologist. It's really awesome. Oh wow, it looks like it's probably a pelvis. That's funny because it really looked like a scapula before you removed the debris from that hole. Nice, so that looks like a positive ID, as close as we're gonna get.
I remember this one being a little bit of a challenge, and as I used my various tools to get that remaining fur off, I eventually noticed that the bone reminded me of a hammerhead shark. So there was a little small protrusion on the bone that reminded me of like a shark fin, and that ultimately helped me to identify what kind of bone it was.
Exactly, you have to use every single clue that is available to you here. And that clue might also include what other bones from other positively identified animals you're finding in that pellet. So if you find a lot of shrew bones, then chances are good you might find a shrew skull or something like that. Well, you found that protrusion though, that's great. That looks like a vole. Did you really feel like a scientist when you were doing this?
Totally. As a kid, I always wanted to be a paleontologist, so having the ability to sit here and almost brush through what, in a lot of ways, is a modern fossil.
Yeah, that's really cool. Oh, and this is the one that looked like a beak. I wonder if it's going to turn out to be a beak. That's exciting.
So I'm checking out the teeth, the types of teeth. Which on your bone identification chart, you'll have a small graph about the incisors, those front teeth, along with the cheek, and then any of the rear teeth that you might find within any of the skulls that are more often or not found inside owl pellets. And rodent skulls are a little bit challenging to tell apart sometimes, especially if you don't have an entire skull intact. And that's why those teeth are really helpful in IDing.
And I love to look at the different teeth in animal skulls and compare them to human teeth in a way. And you can tell if they have those flatter molars in the back that they are at least partially plant-eating animals, just like us. But then if they have those sharper front teeth and incisors, then you know that it's also for tearing flesh and eating some meat like we do as well. Oh, that looks like the other part. Oh, that's a different skull, I guess, huh?
Yeah. So I think sometimes owls will eat multiple prey items in a night. So I think in your section of the video, we talked about the amount of time that it takes to digest prey. And so there may be 2 rodents and a moth, or 2 moths and a rodent in one night. Just like you might eat a bologna sandwich and some tater tots.
I might do that tonight.
I'm gonna do it right now.
Yeah, actually in one of these owl pellet dissection programs that I was part of, one of the participants had one pellet that had 8 different skulls in it. It was really amazing. They were so excited to see how much that owl had eaten in such a short period of time. It was just like the most successful hunter story ever.
I'm gonna grab the magnifying glass there, which is a really great tool if you want to get a little closer look at the teeth within that skull.
And those are some of my favorites, the little collection boxes that have the magnifying glass on top. If you find something really special that gets you really excited, and maybe it's something that you're not even sure you've identified yet, and you want to save it for later for future study and identification, then you can save it in a box like this. Great job. Awesome.
All right, our amateur ornithologist, how awesome was that? We not only got to explore the natural history, biology, and adaptations of owls, we even got to dig our hands into an owl pellet itself and explore all the food that owls eat within their own natural environments.
And this can be just the beginning for you. If you're really excited to learn even more about owls, there are so many resources out there for you, starting with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology's website. They have so much information for you to dive deep into. You can move on down to the New York State DEC website for more information about owls in New York State. You can go to the New York City Parks website for a little bit more of a local information about owls. Then you can even look at some Staten Island Advance articles written by local naturalists for a hyper-local view all about owls.
We want to thank you all for joining yet again another Greenbelt at Home virtual program. If you're interested in learning more about the Greenbelt or our virtual content, you can visit us at sigreenbelt.org. We also have a YouTube channel, the Staten Island Greenbelt, and of course our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram, which we use way too much. Can't wait to see you out on the trail.